Let's move on here to Hunter Biden, the gift that keeps on giving. This guy really is a character. So let's put this latest news up there on the screen. Prosecutors have been advancing a tax probe of Hunter Biden. Grand jury is hearing witnesses in February about past drug use and spending habits of the former president's son. Now, some of these things are truly incredible and are almost out of a movie as to how you would exactly expect a corrupt son of a politician to behave who has deals with foreign oligarchs. It has nothing to do with Ukraine, and it has to do with Kazakhstan in this instance. Let's put this next one up there on the screen. One of the things that they are pointing to is that Hunter, in 2014, bought a Fisker sports car, which he then later traded for a Porsche, using $142,000 transferred to a business account by a Kazakh oligarch, Kengiz Rajakev, who had sought business with Hunter. Now, can you think, Krystal, of anything more cartoonish in the behavior of somebody who is using sketchy dealings? We have a Eastern European oligarch, direct cash transfers, fancy sports cars, through a business account, all in the middle of a tax inquiry. But what this points to is that Hunter has been all over Washington for, 3 decades, using the president's name, or at that time, his father's name, and then the vice president of the United States, in order to do business. I've seen some of the emails of what he's been doing. My personal favorite is he was trying to secure like a professorship at Georgetown where he had been, and said that he would use his dad's position as the drug czar and relationship with South America to get the president of Colombia in order to come and speak at the university.
Wow.
Thus why Georgetown should pay him some $45. Now that is a microcosm of the corruption. It's ridiculous. He says it out there completely in the open. And with the rest of the emails, what you just see over and over again is the use of the president's name in order to get inordinate amount of cash out of these sketchy countries. Ukraine and Burisma is well trodden, $50,000 a month. Actually could have been up to $80,000 a month. This Kazakh oligarch, $142,000. Him and James Biden had a Chinese slush fund, which the Chinese government would just transfer straight up cash. And him and James Biden, who is Biden's brother, would go out and just buy MacBooks and laptops and airfare and all this stuff straight out of this stuff. And also from a tax perspective, he clearly has not been paying his taxes. I mean, allegedly, okay, for Hunter's lawyers. But, if you're just taking straight up money, cash out of your business account and buying cars, fancy sports cars, now that we're small business owners, I can't even imagine what the accountants would do if we were to do some sort of madness. Like, they'd be like, what are you doing? That's
very
not
careful
legal.
with all of these things, guys. Very careful.
Yeah, we dot all our I's and cross the T's here simply because we talk a little bit of smack about the IRS. But you would think that if you're the president's son, that you would take even more care. But it seems to have been the opposite. He thought he could get away with anything. He has been protected. That's right.
I just want to go through the details from the Wall Street Journal more about the sports car, because it really is a perfect window into the way that he traded on his name and his theoretical access in order to fund what was clearly a lavish lifestyle. And, the allegation here that is being probed by a grand jury is whether, as part of funding that lavish lifestyle, he also failed to pay his taxes and engaged in illegal shenanigans to avoid doing so. We also know that he had to borrow $1 million in order to help get himself current on his existing tax liability. Who did he borrow
that money from, by the way? I'd love to know that.
Great question. So here's how the car thing went down. This is per the Wall Street Journal. In April 2014, a business associate of Mr. Biden from Kazakhstan wired $142,300, so he's not buying like a Honda Civic here, guys, to Rosemont Seneca. This is a Delaware corporation with ties to Hunter Biden. They were earmarked in the bank record as, quote, for a car. So I guess on like the memo line that you put when you do a wire transfer or whatever, they just wrote for a car. A day after the money was received by Rosemont Seneca, the entity's banking statements showed that they wired that same amount to a New Jersey car dealer. The money purchased a Fisker sports car for use by Hunter Biden, but was owned in the name of that corporation, Rosemont Seneca, according to a former associate and another person. Hunter Biden later traded the Fisker for a silver Porsche, the ex-associate added. And, there's some speculation in this piece about whether they may actually file charges against Hunter Biden in this federal tax investigation. One of the things that they point to here is that reportedly prosecutors were extensively questioning people on Hunter's drug and alcohol use, his spending habits, and his state of mind in 2018. And their analysis is that this could suggest prosecutors are exploring whether such activity would present a defense against a potential criminal tax case. Again, this could be an indication that they are seriously considering charges, and that, they're trying to probe what the potential defenses would be so that they can make sure that they're sort of protected against him saying, look, I was in recovery, I was struggling, I have mental health issues, and so I should be seen with some lenience in my dealings during this time.
I have sympathy for anybody who is struggling with addiction. But as you have pointed out, it is the height of privilege. I just got back from Los Angeles. I saw human suffering on a scale that I did not think existed in the United States of America when I went to Skid Row. I genuinely thought I was back in Cambodia or the slums of Mumbai. That's what it actually felt like. I couldn't believe my eyes in terms of what I was seeing. Do you think those people are allowed to cavort with European prostitutes around the globe and wire hundreds of thousands of dollars from Kazakh oligarchs
and
given a pass this entire time? No.
They're given a pass for nothing.
These people can barely jaywalk without being arrested and thrown in jail.
That's right.
So when they are treated in the same way, maybe.
Arrested and thrown in prison for a tiny joint in their pocket.
Whenever I see people on Skid Row who are being raped and taken advantage of out on the street, treated with the same level of compassion by the justice system that we then see Mr. Biden treated by, we can have a discussion.
Well,
until then, screw you.
And to add insult to injury, his own father is the one who architected those tough on crime rules and continues to be a front of the line drug warrior, even as president, and wildly out of step with the American public at this point.
Until then you're not pleading, oh, I was, dealing with it. Okay, a lot of people are. And you know what? They don't even have a penny to their name and get bankrupted. And when they steal like a TV or whatever, thrown in jail. You think they're going to plead, oh, I was high under, you think the judge cares? We shouldn't care either. This is not only money that is owed to the United States Treasury, but this is somebody who used the influence of his father clearly in order to live some crazy, high-flying lifestyle. And it is the height of degeneracy for a regime in order to excuse this type of behavior, especially whenever we are prosecuting people at the very lowest level of the rung. And you're not hearing any of this on the media. Put this next one up there on the screen, which is that even though these current emails show that Biden obviously lied about the extent of his knowledge, ABC News, CBS News, NBC News have not mentioned Hunter Biden's name in 259 days. This is from an analysis by Newsbusters in terms of the transcript reviews of those three channels. Those are the way that millions of people get their news in this country. They have no idea that any of this is a thing. Are we saying that this is the most important thing? There's a reason it's all this way late into the show, okay? Biden and Ukraine, obviously more important. The budget, billionaires tax, more important. Fed, also more important. But the president's son having sketchy dealings with foreign oligarchs is a problem. And we said the same thing when Jared Kushner was, begging for Saudi cash after leaving the White House, when Steve Mnuchin was begging for cash, when Ivanka Trump was having dealings with Nordstrom and the Chinese government, when Jared's brother was asking for visas for VIP Chinese and promising them access to the White House. All of that is equally corrupt and spent a decent amount of time on it. Or whenever foreign diplomats stayed at the Trump Hotel here in Washington, D.C. And even Zelensky, by the way. Do you remember the perfect phone call? The most objectionable thing about the perfect phone call to me is when Zelensky was like, by the way, Mr. President, we stay at Trump Hotel, great hotel. God. I was like, oh, this is repulsive. I'm sorry. This is disgusting. I mean,
we're not talking about that part of Zelensky.
Yeah, not that Zelensky. But some of us remember,
It's funny, that perfect phone call. I was thinking about that in the A block when we were talking about Biden saying like, I did nothing wrong on these things. It was perfect, right? Though it's sad how similar these men can be in certain respects. But yeah, it's also, look, the corruption itself is worth covering and worth talking about, and it's a window into sort of standard issue practices and corruption that have been accepted in this town for far too long. But it is also a media story because they really did go to the mat in, collusion with the security state and the tech companies to try to protect Hunter and, by extension, his father from any scrutiny on these issues. I think the American people should have information. I think they should be able to make their own judgments. And frankly, I think they probably would have still elected Joe Biden. And by the way, by trying to cover all of this up, they created a lot more interest in this story than there was if they had just let it sort of run its course through reporting and investigation. But the fact that they're so uneven in their coverage of the corruption, which was very real and very worthy of coverage of the Trump family and the Biden family, it also plays into, real concern about how even-handed and how fair the media actually is in covering these things. There are a few reporters out there, Ken Vogel, who we put up on the screen.
He doesn't care.
Who really does, both sides of the aisle. He's following the money. David Sirota and his team over at The Lever, same deal.
Yep.
But those types are few and far between, sadly.
Yeah, that's right.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.